This is MacVoicesTV. Hi, I'm Chuck Joyner. Welcome to MacVoicesTV. This is the talk of the Mac community. This time around, we're going to talk about the newest version of a web authoring tool that I'm kind of excited about. I've learned a little more about it, really like some of the enhancements. So we're going to talk to Dan Wood of Karelia about Sandvox 2. Dan, it's great to have you on MacVoices. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me on. It's really cool to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be, I think, a little fun, and I think it's going to open a few people's eyes because Sandvox, I've played with Sandvox in the past, but some of the enhancements and a little more familiarity have made it something I'm taking a real hard second, third, fourth look. In fact, I've started playing with a little project in it. But I'm going to turn it over to you and let you talk about what Sandvox is, what audience it's for, that kind of thing.
Well, Sandvox is a web authoring tool for the Mac. It is a, to use that overused term, what you see is what you get, is one way of describing it. But, the idea is that it is easy to use and extremely powerful. So there are some web authoring tools you can get. One might even have been pre-installed on your Mac, but they sometimes have some ceilings that you kind of reach. And the idea here is a website tool that's really easy to use, really powerful, really flexible, especially this new version 2 that we're so excited about. And then being able to do things very easily, but then if you find you need some power and the ability to put in your own HTML code that either you know how to use or how some website gave it to you, just paste this in your website. You can do that without having to worry about having to manage your entire website with HTML. And it's the kind of application that's used by we have hundreds or thousands of users out there, and we've kind of gotten a sense of what people are using it for, and it really ranges everywhere from just the individual, the family, someone has a new addition to the family, or they're getting married, or something personal, or maybe sort of a group thing, a club like a church or synagogue, or ham radio club or something like that, and then all the way up to a business. A lot of small businesses, whether it's just a single kind of a mom and pop sort of a shop, or even all the way up to a small to medium-sized business. I mean, as long as they have a need for a website that doesn't require something really complicated like a content management system or a database or something like that. Sandvox is a really good tool for something like that.
It's interesting that you characterize it that way, because that was my thought. It seems like so much web publishing has moved to the servers that, and of course we always love to talk about cloud. But WordPress, I use WordPress for all my sites as of this moment, and it's a great tool, but it also means that I have a limited ability to work offline at my convenience, in a car, on a commute, anything like that. With Sandvox, though, this kind of goes back to the model that a lot of us knew with something like Adobe Go Live, may it rest in peace, that your site, everything was on your machine, and then you uploaded it to the server to be live, as opposed to having it kind of live on the server all the time and having to manage that. I think that's a better approach for a lot of people, especially those that don't need the power of a server-based environment.
Right. Yeah, I think it's really nice to have a deep integration with your Mac. I've tried doing little blogs on WordPress and Blogger and some of these kinds of things like that. And the problem is that it's so separate from the environment that you're used to working with. I mean, you want to work directly with your iPhoto library or your iTunes if you have content that you can share audio, or QuickTime and all these kinds of things. And so to be able to be typing stuff in, that's fine. Your keyboard is your keyboard. But as soon as you're working with your media and your files, and you have to go through this process of like telling it how to get to your files and get just uploading images, if you're not really using a native Mac program, is really a hassle. And having your own local solution to that is really, really amazing, because you don't really worry about that.
Well, and before we get into it, I want to make sure that we mention too, you have made it easy to create a blog. WordPress, is what we think of, I think, for blogs, a lot of us. Tumblr, there are a lot of options out there that, again, are the online options, but Sandvox 2 lets me create a blog that is just as viable as any of those. And again, I think for a lot of people, it may be, as you said, a lot more comfortable, make almost a lot more sense to do it this way on their Mac as opposed to on the server.
Yeah, we had this insight actually when we were first working on the first version of Sandvox, and that was that, really a blog isn't anything special except it's a collection of pages that are sort of organized, and they're organized, you have the top entry at the most recent entry at the top and so on. But really, a blog can be a collection of any kinds of pages. You might be sharing videos or photos or text or a combination of any of those, maybe even just a link to another web page. And so we had this, originally we were looking at, what are the tools out there? What are they doing? And everybody says, well, here's your template for making a blog. And what are your blog entries? And I just thought, a blog is just a collection of pages. And somehow having that revelation, it just kind of, it strips away everything but the bare essence of what you're really looking for. And then, of course, you add in all the stuff like RSS feeds and all that kind of stuff. But it does make it really simple, and suddenly blogging is just like, cool, I just have a folder of web pages, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think it's time to stop talking and let you show us a little bit of Sandvox 2, because I think that's going to much more clearly illustrate for the viewers how this program works and how easy it is to create a website in just a matter of a couple minutes, but have it be a fairly fully featured and polished website, not just something that you slap up with a default template necessarily.
Well, so I guess we're looking at my screen here, and let's just get Sandvox launched over here, and we just get a nice little friendly welcome screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some information about a restaurant that's just up the road from me, and we're going to just build a website for this woman. Renee's Place is what it's going to be called. So I'm just going to click on create a new site. And what we're seeing here is the design chooser, and this is just giving us a starting point. How do we want the website to look? And Sandvox comes with about 60 or so designs out of the box to choose from, ranging from really kind of whimsical to very serious and basic, and there's a lot to choose from. And in fact, there's a number of designers that sell their own designs as well too. So if what we have to offer isn't quite what you want, there's a lot of other options out there that you can get as well. For this demo here for the restaurant, what I want to do is choose brown and green, and so I'll just click choose here, and that's going to start me off with beginnings of a website here. And over here on the left is our site outline. We're just going to be adding some pages here. It starts out with a home page, and it has initially set up the title of the website just based on my company name. So I have a other screen over here which I'm going to be able to grab a few bits of text and so on from, so I don't have to do much typing here, because I never like to type for demos. And so we're going to say Renee's Place, and I'm just going to paste that in over here. I'm just going to use all the keyboard shortcuts. I don't think we need to watch me typing paste from the command, the edit menu and so on. So I've pasting in welcome to Renee's Place, and then we're going to need some text for that. Let me look over here.
And just to be absolutely clear, so the folks know, you're working off a second monitor to take the document and copy the text. But it's just cut and paste, folks. That's all. Exactly.
So here I'm just going to do a copy here. Okay, I'll use the edit menu if you really want to see it the slow way. Okay. Close that. Don't save it. Click back over here where we would be typing and paste, and there's our text. And this is just rich text. You don't really have to worry about any kind of HTML tags or anything like that. I mean, you just sort of edit the text like you would any word processor practically. Now, a web page is going to need hyperlinks, and so what I'm going to do is choose this Yelp page text down here, and we're going to want to have a link to her Yelp page. So I happen to have her URL here, which I'll launch over here in Safari. Okay, so there it is. And if I go back over to Sandvox, and I'm just going to use the Create Link button from the toolbar, and that opens up our inspector over here, and you'll see that it actually already loaded it in, because what Sandvox is doing is that it's seeing that you have some website open in Safari and just grabs whatever that website is as its first guess, and as it turns out, it's right. So I can close the inspector, and now we have a nice hyperlink to the Yelp page. So let me close this and get it out of the way. So now we're going to need a little bit of multimedia, And so I have a nice photo of Renee here that I'm going to drag in, and we're just going to drop it sort of over here in the middle of the page here. And there's Renee. And what we have, pardon me, what's new in Sandvox 2 is the ability to resize, live resizing of the images and so on. We can also align it, so align it to the left and the center with these guidelines showing us on the right. And with the inspector, we actually have a few more options. And so I'm going to click over here on the wrap inspector, and I want to just have this over on the right side, but with the text flowing around it. Okay. And so there's our nice picture of Renee. And one more thing I want to add to the home page here is a video. So we have a nice little video of the inside of the restaurant. I'm just going to drag this in from my other monitor and drop it over here. And we're not seeing it until we actually hit play, so let's just press play, and there's the restaurant. And is it okay if I get a little technical with your audience, Chuck?
By all means, tell
Okay.
them what they need to know.
So just to point out what's kind of cool here is that what Sandvox has done is it's taken that video file, which was a .mp4, or actually a .m4v, but it's an H.264 encoded. It's the kind of video that was exported to be playable on the iPhone and iPad. And it recognizes that and just uses the new modern HTML5 video tag to actually embed that video on the website. And the advantage of that is, well, first of all, it's playable on the iPad and the iPhone. It's also, this HTML5 video tag that's happening is used by all the modern browsers. But, there are some browsers out there that maybe they don't understand about this H.264, or they don't understand about the video tag. So what Sandvox is doing is it's automatically also including a Flash-based player, so that if you have a machine that can handle Flash, which is pretty much everything else, then this movie will play as a Flash video. And so what's really cool about this is that we now have practically 100% coverage of browsers out there as far as making videos that can be viewed on just about everything. So, Mac and Windows and Internet Explorer and Safari and Firefox and of course in the iPad and the iPhone. And we have a similar story with audio. It's the same concept, but it's really that's a big leap forward, because what used to happen is that you would you'd upload a QuickTime movie or an AVI file, and you'd have to sort of say, well, I'm putting this in here, but I might be alienating half of the people out there. So if you have a movie file, then those Windows machines might not have a QuickTime plugin on it or something. So this really takes care of that.
And I think it's so exciting that you make it so easy to make this media rich. We don't have the problems associated with trying to figure out how to resize it, or what tags to put in. You just say, okay, here's a movie, and I drop it in, and there it is. You drop a picture in and then tweak the size of it and tweak the placement in an inspector that everyone is familiar with who has touched Pages or Keynote or any of Apple's apps.
Right. Yeah. In fact, we were really inspired by Pages and Keynote, just as far as their kind of their feel, the look and feel of their inspector and so on is it's just those are really, really good user interface, and so we might as well be inspired by that. And so let's do a couple of other things here. Now, let's see. How much time do we have for the demo, Chuck? How much?
As long as you need to show what we need to show.
I'll show a few cool few things. So Let me just show how easy it is to make a new page to the site. So just up here from the little pop-up menu, I'm just going to say create a new empty text page. And one thing that's new in Sandvox 2 is that we don't really have the concept of a page type. I mean, just any page can contain anything. So that restriction is gone, and it's really nice to have that gone. So let's call this page. We're going to make this be the directions to her restaurant. So I'm going to just paste in directions. And notice it also says directions up here. That's because this is starting to build up a site menu where people can click on links and navigate around the site. So I have a text file here that is the directions to the restaurant. I'll open that up and copy and just paste that into where you would type. And then the last thing we're going to need is an image here. I'm just dragging this in, plop, and I'll put it down below the text, but that's basically our web page. So within just a minute or two, we built up a nice, fairly simple but useful web page. How about a blog? Shall we do a blog?
Absolutely.
All right. So every business ought to have a blog because it's giving nice, fresh content that will get their visitors to come back for more. So we'll just choose blog here. And over in our site outline, you can see there's the blog as a whole, and it's automatically created the first post in that blog. And so I'll just give it a little bit of graphics here. And so here is I'm going to paste in this, which I don't know how to pronounce it, but I'm going to guess it's like Xinjiang style vegetable salad, something like that. And grab some text, replace that. It's kind of like we did before, but this time for the graphic, I'm going to actually go to our media browser. Now, the media browser, we originally built this to sort of mimic what Apple was putting into their applications that they weren't giving developers access to, which was really we were kind of sad about that because it's very useful to have. And so we built it actually as an open source framework. So there are about 24 applications out there that are using this media browser within their application, which is kind of cool, very gratifying to see. And so I'll just grab this photo, drag it in here, and there it is. So there's a simple blog post, again, resize the image, what have you. And so what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to have just the one entry in the blog for the sake of expediency. And we're going to go on and make a new item here. We have our homepage, our directions, our blog, but I'm going to make a photo album. So again, let's use the photo album preset. And again, I'm going to grab some media. It wants me to drag the images there. So let's just grab a bunch of the photos, drag them into place. And in a moment here, it'll have everything built up. Come on. I'm not used to it taking this long. There we go. Okay. Well, I guess it took a while to resize all those images. So anyhow, we have all these the thumbnails that we're seeing here in the photo grid here. It's resized those. And you also see on the left that it has made an individual page, one for each photo that we dragged in. So I can click, if I were a website visitor, I would click here on one of these thumbnails, and that would take me to the page for that image. And I could navigate by just going from page to page. And that's kind of the old-fashioned way of navigating a website. So I'm going to show you what's new in Sandvox 2. If I go back to Photo Album and choose that grid and use our inspector, and I'm going to go over to the last segment here, which is for the selected object, and I just want to check Gallery, turn on Gallery. Now what happens when I click on a photo is it's actually going to just pop up some web developers call this a lightbox, but we call it a gallery. It's I think it's a little bit more accessible term. And you can use the arrow keys as well and just kind of zoom through your slides. And I'm not sure if you're able to see the animation here, but it's a nice experience. And so without actually leaving that web page, you're able to view a nice gallery of your photos. Okay.
You're making me hungry, Dan.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, we should warn people. Please eat before viewing this interview here, huh? So I want to do a few more things here just to kind of customize this site a little bit more, and that is, if you look up at the top here, you'll see that it's just kind of a generic looking banner here. So I'm going to actually use the inspector and open up the document tab and go over to appearance, and I want to say I want to use my own image. So we happen to have some nice photo here that's what we designed for an image here. And I'll move the inspector out of the way. We'll use it again in a minute. So there's a nice custom graphic that goes with the theme of a restaurant. I think these are actually hanging in the restaurant. And so now that we've done that and we have the logo up here, we don't really need to have it showing down here. So I'm actually going to just hide that by checking that, and I'll uncheck that as well. And one more thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go over to the home page because I want this home page to show up in the site menu along with these other items. So I'll just click over here on the page segment and just say I want that to be in the menu. And we see it says welcome to Renee's Place, but just to be a little bit simpler, I'm going to just type home. And so now we have a link to our home page. And so now we have just, your basic website. There's a few more things I'd like to show off, but maybe we have time to do a little test publishing. Is that okay?
Absolutely, and I want to make sure too we get to the objects, maybe just one or two, so they can see the way they polish off a website.
Right. That's a good way of saying it. Yeah, you have. I mean, this is basic content, but there's a lot of things you might want to add to it to just give your website some bells and whistles and so on. So for publishing, you're going to need to set up, you're going to need to decide what host you're going to be publishing on. And really, Sandvox can publish to just about any FTP kind of web host under the sun. We prefer SFTP, but FTP or MobileMe or anything. I'm going to actually just publish on this computer. And the reason I'm doing that is because I don't think we want to sit around and watch the screencast, uploading videos. So I'm going to just choose computer and put this into a subfolder. Click continue, and it's going to be at that IP address or URL, but I'm going to just, that's just a little temporary placeholder of my current IP address. So now anytime that you've made some changes to your website, you just go up here and you click publish. And you're telling Sandvox to take anything that has changed and put it up on the, up on the server. And the idea is you can work offline as much as you need, and then when you're ready, you make all your changes go live. And so what we can do is just see that it's really there. So I'll just click publish or choose visit publish site from the publish menu. And there we have it. There is Renee's Place in Safari. And, not surprisingly, it looks pretty much the same. And that's, the main reason behind that, is that Sandvox is using the same exact WebKit engine under the hood that Safari uses for its web technology. So, and no surprise, it should look pretty much the same. So there we've done it. We've published the first draft of our website. So you want to take a look at some more objects, right?
Yeah, what did that take us? About 8 minutes, 10 minutes to create that? Now, I know we had the things pre-prepared, but still, the idea that the design and the construction all was really drag and drop, cut and paste, and that was it.
Yeah. The really funny thing is, and when I talk to people about building websites, and I've set up websites for people before and volunteered or whatever, and people go, oh yeah, I want to build this website, and they focus so much on the tool, but really the content is where if you have a good tool, then the content is what's going to take the time, to get the text right and getting your graphics and your videos shot and everything like that. So yeah, as long as you have the content, the tool, if you have the right tool like Sandvox, it is super easy to do, huh? So what I'm going to do is show a couple of kind of cool objects, and the objects are things that you can put on your website. I'm going to actually start out with a new blog post. We have just the one item, but I'm going to create a new page, and on that page I'm going to put a YouTube video. So I'm going to choose here, go to, this is my objects menu, and there's a whole bunch of these pre-built objects that are really kind of useful for putting on your website. I'm just going to choose YouTube, and there is a placeholder. So I happen to have a URL of a street fair that was just happening down the block from the restaurant, and there it is, YouTube. It knows how to parse the URL, and there it is. There's our video. If you want to tweak that a little bit, you can use the inspector, and we'll go back over here to this segment. And in this case, I want to say, well, this is not a widescreen video, so I'm going to just click on that. It's reloaded the page, but in the more appropriate aspect ratio. Kind of a noisy video. So so that's one object. Another place you can put objects is on the sidebar of your home of any page. If I put it over here on the sidebar, we're like over here where we have this created with Sandvox badge. We put that there initially. You could take it off, but I can't imagine why anyone would want to take it off, right? It's kind of showing how proud you are created with Sandvox. And so let's see what we can put over here. I am going to put an Amazon list, and that's going to make it easy for people to do a little bit of shopping at Amazon.com. Now, with the theme of this restaurant, we're going to want some books that have to do with food and so on. Probably not cookbooks, though. I don't know. You don't want to discourage people from going to the restaurant. But we'll get a few examples here. Load those up. And so I've just dragged in 3 little guys here, and that's taking a moment to load up that thumbnail. But basically, what I've done here is I've given it. I'm just going to open this up. I'm just giving it a standard Amazon website, and it's parsing that URL. It knows what the product is, and then it goes and asks, it's asking for asking Amazon for the appropriate data, and showing the thumbnails and titles and so on. So you can rearrange your products, and there's a thumbnail. It took a little while to load, and add new products. If you have a associate ID where you get a little revenue from people clicking on links to the products that you put on your website, you could enter that over here. And international users, we cover all of the Amazon stores that are out there. And we also have some really cool tabs in the appearance tab, some really cool options for changing how this is going to look. So for instance, maybe you want it to be a larger thumbnail, or you want them, but this is the one I like, is kind of alternating back and forth, left to right, like that. So again, without having to deal with any kind of HTML code or anything like that, you're just putting some cool bells and whistles on your site. We have a lot of new social media kinds of things in our in our new version of Sandvox, Sandvox 2. So for instance, you might want to put a Facebook button onto the like button onto your pages, so that when someone comes and visits that page, they'll share it with their friends and so on. So we have a lot of things like that. And one other thing I'm going to do is actually do we have time for 2 more things to show off?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. So let's do a contact form. The idea is that you could put your email address on your own website, but the problem is that the spam bots will eventually find you and start sending you more spam than you already have. So what we have here is the idea of a contact form. And I'm setting this up to go in the sidebar as well. I'll use the inspector, and I'm going to just put in this is a fake email address. And what that's doing now is that there's a form. Someone visiting the site can come in and fill out their information and send a message to Renee. And Renee's email address is actually encrypted on the form. And then we have a server that's, as a courtesy for our Sandvox users, that decrypts the email address and then forwards that message on to Renee. And that way people can reach her, but the spam robots can't. So now I wanted to show a little bit of an advanced feature, and that's kind of my last thing to show off, I think. We've done this website without having to deal with any HTML. That's great, except that you may find for some reason that you actually do want to have some HTML. And so we have this feature of being able to put a raw HTML object onto your page, so that object can actually go into the main content area, or it could go over here in the sidebar. I'm going to put it in the sidebar, so I'm going to just select something over here in the sidebar and choose raw HTML. And that's going to open up a little editor. And so there's the HTML, and this is what it looks like on the page. Now, what I'm going to do is use sort of a typical example. A lot of times you might not know any HTML, but there might be some web page that gives you, says, hey, put this HTML on your page, and then you've embedded our content. And that's really cool. So I'm going to use this Google gadget over here. And I want to make this a little bit narrower than the sidebar, and I'll give it a green border to sort of match what her website looks like. And I click Get the Code. And so this is the code that they tell me to put on my website. And I don't really know anything about it. I'm just going to copy it, close out here, paste into this editor window here, and close it up. And now, instead of raw HTML, there's our calendar. So really, any website, we have a lot of these objects here that we've kind of taken care of a lot of things, but if there's some website that you really want to put a video on, from Vimeo or Vidler or something like that, any kinds of places where there's a way to embed their content on your website, this is the way to do it. And that's actually a feature that used to be, in Sandvox 1.x, we've had kind of a regular and a pro edition, but as of Sandvox 2, we have a new, it's just basically unified. Everybody gets this feature because it's just really, really useful. And I also, really quick, and I just want to point it down at the bottom, we have some information about each page. This is the information, what's called the window title, the meta description. This is the kind of stuff that shows up when Google finds you and lists your page on its search engine results page. Not all the time, but most of the time. And it's a really great way to get people to come to your website is if you have something actually compelling here in your description of your website, then people are more likely to click on that listing and go to your site. And so, we put that front and center here because it's really important. If you have a business especially and you want to get people to come, then you want them to click on those links on Google's listings. So we make that really easy to do. And I guess that's
Dan,
pretty much it. Go ahead.
Yeah, before we wrap up, talk just a second, or show, I should say, the RSS feed options, because as someone who obviously is interested in podcasting and all, that was a concern I had. And you don't just give me the option to set up, an RSS feed as in standard. You let me pick what kind of RSS feed I want to create.
Right. So here in our blog, for instance, I'm going to open the inspector. And I think when you create a blog, it just initially sets up an RSS feed for you, so you're not even thinking about it. If I go over here and choose collection, yeah, I just have a standard RSS feed. But specifically, if I have a photocast or a podcast, the idea is that Sandvox can put in some additional information into its tags to help give your feed reader some additional information. So I don't know if we're doing iTunes specific tags yet, but I know for photocast kind of things that'll add the media as an attachment essentially. So that's kind of a nice way to do that. You could, for instance, subscribe to a feed in iPhoto, for instance.
And that's a feature that I think a lot of people have forgotten about.
Yeah.
But as we all take more photos, it's something nice to be reminded of, and especially that you're supporting it. I could create a photo site or photo blog just right in Sandvox too, not have any problems with it. Just here, drag, drop, tweak, go. Very nice. Very nice.
So yeah, that's a kind of a whirlwind demo, and there's a lot of other corners and some other advanced features, some other places where you can put in some HTML in strategic places of your page, and some other integration we have with Google as far as dealing with their webmaster tools and blog commenting systems. We interface with 3 different blog commenting systems and all kinds of stuff. It's a really, really big update. I mean, I think our main list is something like 6 dozen new features, and some of those are things that are under the hood as far as the way the whole editing engine works, and some of them are a lot more obvious. But, to me, the biggest new thing is just the ability to have that flexibility of putting pretty much any kind of object on a page and putting it anywhere on the page, as opposed to saying, this shall be a photo page and this shall be a video page. Really, really opens up a lot of possibilities.
Well, and with the photo gallery, that's a perfect example of how you let me do some of the sexy, polished, sophisticated-looking stuff very easily, so that even I can do it. I don't have to worry about setting lots of parameters or whether things work or not. It's just drag, drop, and
actually, I'm going to just show you one little cool thing that I don't think I've shown anybody in a demo before. But if I select these pages and I say that these pages want to be in the site menu as well, then what happens when this photo album, when we look at the site menu, now we actually get a pop-up menu. And that's something people have been asking for so long for Sandvox. And so now we do that. So now that's your, if you have a little multi-level website, a little more complicated, there's a nice way to navigate that. So nice little extra add-on that we actually haven't really talked about that with anybody in the pre-release time. We want it to be a little bit of a surprise.
So we get a little bit of an exclusive.
Well, I think by the time everyone's listening to this, it's not exclusive anymore. So.
Oh darn! Well, maybe next time. Dan, I believe Sandvox 1. I know you had a demo version up on your site that I could download and play with. Is it the same true for Sandvox 2?
Absolutely. Just download it. You can use it and actually publish up to 5 pages. So even if you don't buy it and you just want to have a really simple site with only 5 pages, just do it. You just as long as you're not trying to publish that 6th or 7th or 8th page, then you're fine. And then you'd need to get a license.
And if I decide I want to publish that 6th or 7th or 8th page, what's it going to cost me to get a license?
Well, so its regular price is $77 for the single user license, and we also have some site license options and a household license if you're in a household with multiple users. And we actually have an introductory price going on for the first 10 days where it's $67.
Great.
But you have to act fast, as they say,
Yeah, well, that's hard to beat. I have to tell you, this just strikes me as web publishing that is very approachable. You don't have to have all that server stuff. And I do remember seeing in the FTP part that this supports MobileMe as well. So if I've got a MobileMe account, I've got a home for the website already. I can just publish it there, and I can, at the very least, I can use that as a staging place to try it out, and then change my publication spot later.
Sure, that's one thing you could do. Yeah.
Okay, so let's have the website so we can send lots of people to you and they can download Sandvox 2 and start playing.
Well, the easiest way to do it is to just go to www.sandvox.com. I'm actually not going to bring the screen up because as we're recording this, we don't have the new website up and running yet. But just www.sandvox.com, and that'll take you right there.
Great. Dan, I appreciate you taking the time to show it to us. I know that you're busy because, as you say, as we're recording this, we're doing this a little pre-launch. So you've got one or two things that are occupying your time right now.
Yeah, I'm keeping busy today, but we're doing fine.
Well, I hope this is a great success for you. I hope we'll see you back here on MacVoicesTV, and definitely join us back on the Mac Jury sometime soon.
Oh, that'll be my pleasure. That was a lot of fun when I did it last time. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Okay.
Folks, that's Dan Wood. He is the boss over at Karelia Software, the makers of Sandvox 2. Check them out at KareliaSoftware.com. As always, I'll have links in the show notes to everything that Dan talked about. You can follow us both on Twitter and stay up to date as to what's happening in my universe and in Dan's. Dan, we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks very much.
I'm Chuck Joyner. MacVoicesTV is the talk of the Mac community. Thanks for watching. MacVoicesTV is part of the MacVoices group and a member of Mac Level 10.